The fact that the progressive fringe is now standing with the literal fucking terrorists.
The left fringe is standing with. That is such a nice framing. I don't even know what the left fringe means. I'm not even sure what this is supposed to mean. Am I of the left fringe? I consider myself to be pretty left wing. Am I on the fringe?
Like, what the hell are we thinking? Look at what we're doing with the trans children debate.
Oh, trans children debate. Where's Brianna won the trans children debate?
What is the progressive left's answer to any parent that has a question on any of that?
I mean, you could say that about anything. You could say that about any issues. Oh, what's the answer of the... Oh my god, Red Rose, thank you for the tier 4 subscription. Thank you. Thank you so much for the tier subscription. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Well, this stream is up to a good start, I think. Thank you. My goodness. It's okay. Whatever height you can reach is the perfect height from my perspective. Thank you. Okay, so as I've started saying, like, you could say it about, like, let's just listen to her again.
Progressive left. Look at what we're doing with the trans children.
Look at what we're doing with the gay debate.
What is the progressive left's answer?
What is the progressive left's answer
to any parent that has a question on any of that?
To any parent that has question about their children's gayness. You could do that about anything, about any issue that is, you know, in the past you could do that about being gay. What are you doing about the gay debate?
Is shut the fuck up. We've got to move back to science and back to reality.
What does that mean? We have to move back to science and back to reality? Because I genuinely don't know what that means. What that is supposed to mean. What science and what reality? Like, those are such empty statements. Those are such vague and empty statements. You know? Like, it's as empty as it can get. You can insert anything here. You can basically insert any meaning here. You know what I mean? You can insert, like... Apologies. Technical issues. One time I was talking to a woman who was confused about why her child was so mild-mannered at home but acting out in school. Some parents simply cannot understand that their children are afraid of them and we hide things from them. They won't have to ask these questions if they were friendly with their kids or if they communicated. You know? Communicated with their children. Communication is key. Actually, communication is key not just with children but you know, but in general, communication is key.
Perceive progressives as assholes. A decade ago during Gamergate, people thought the white male gamers were the assholes. I've got news for you. Today, it's trans Twitter, it's socialist Twitter.
I'm sorry, what?
As assholes.
This,
like, a decade ago during...
I don't know. To me, Brianna Wu is just incomprehensible. It's just saying a lot of vague nonsense and it's just... What am I supposed to get from this? What am I supposed to exactly even take away from these statements so far?
Gamergate, people thought the white...
Of course, Gamergate. I've heard she's obsessed with Gamergate, but literally I think that's the only thing she can talk about, Gamergate. Gamergate was a very tired topic years ago. In 2024, I don't know if anybody talks about Gamergate apart from her. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. Jesus Christ.
male gamers were the assholes. I've got news for you. Today, it's trans Twitter, it's socialist Twitter, it's...
What the hell is trans Twitter? What the hell is socialist Twitter? Like, again, these are such vague terms that are meaningless. Trans Twitter? Am I part of the trans Twitter? I'm trans. I sometimes write on Twitter. Am I part of trans Twitter? It makes no sense.
It's terrorist sympathizer Twitter. It's us.
Who what? It's us?
Socialist Twitter. It's terrorist sympathizer Twitter.
What the fuck is terrorist sympathizer Twitter? And then at the end, it's us.
It's us.
That last one is just like, what? It's us? What the hell does that mean? It's us.
Brianna, well, welcome to Trigonometry. We've been working on this interview. We've got a bunch of questions to ask you, but first of all...
I've got so many questions based just on that intro. Oh, hello, Lavender Corpse. Wait. Hello, have I seen you here before? Oh my gosh, I have to pause this and I have to ask you, because I feel like, I don't know, Alt? Reverse Alt? Oh. Don't think so? So are you new here? If you're new here, then tell me, how did you find the stream? What do you like about this stream? What do you dislike about this stream? And also, you know, what other streamers do you watch? Not life story. These are a couple of simple questions. Okay? Also, why are you white? Thank you. Thank you, thank you. No answer? Not interested? Maybe I scared Lavender Corpse away from responding. Hello, fake Alec Carl Parker. Talk a bit to some new static. Learned that you still do Ukraine coverage. Was curious. Oh, what other streamers do you watch? Lavender Corpse. So Static brought you here. I understand.
Lots of people told you not to come on the show.
Oh my God.
What even is this show? Whatever.
I announced this, what was it, 2 days ago, and my DMs have been nothing but people calling you transphobes and Nazis and racists. And
oh, so they're probably right-wing or something. Is that a right-wing show? Trigonometry, what a name. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to be at this point. Crying about wokeness, about reality, about trans and terrorist sympathizer Twitter. West Side Tyler used to watch Vosh, that kind of thing, if strictly political. Okay. Do you watch any Ukraine coverage channels? Or no? Do you watch any channels that cover Ukraine? Okay. Sure is. Not really, no. Oh. Wait, so why were you interested in my Ukraine coverage if you don't really watch any Ukraine coverage? Yes, Ukraine is still in war with Russia. That's, yes. Centrists? Okay.
I'm always like, can you show me a clip of what they've said to like make you feel that way? It's always the most silly thing. It is, I don't know. It's like
Just
no one
me doing a Hitler salute.
Yes, exactly that.
Silly.
Yeah.
What? Okay. You see the point in trying to... It's gonna give up when you get pushed back. What?
Yeah,
Stuff
the
like that.
KKK costume,
Yeah.
I think, was a little
Well,
much.
look, it was a nice
maybe.
party.
Yeah.
What can you say? But anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm
It's
really
great to
honored.
have you. I've been following a lot of the things you've been saying recently, and it was very interesting for us to get you on the show to talk about them because I don't know if you saw, I wrote an article very shortly after October 7th for the Free Press called "The Day the Delusions Died."
Wow.
What are the delusions that died? Exactly.
And my argument was that I thought that it was no longer possible for a lot of good people on the left to pretend that the extremes of the left were not going off the rails.
Yeah.
And you
I mean, sure, extreme go off the rails, but what does that mean for the broader left-wing movement? At least the fringe left does not dictate the policy of the entire left, which actually cannot be said about the right wing, especially currently.
were someone who is outright progressive,
Yep.
Democrat progressive.
You know? Like the GOP is taken over by the fringe. At least the Democratic Party, as far as I know, is not taken over by the fringe, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Raising money to fight Trump and all
My
the rest
literal job is to get Democrats elected.
of it. Right.
Like,
Well,
I'm on the team.
Yes, you're on the team.
amazing. Well, you're not doing a very good job since you've been canned from Progressive Victory.
And I see you now being one of the very few people who's willing to stand up against the anti-Semitic extremes on your own side. Not just anti-Semitic, but there's also large elements of anti-whiteness and all
Sure.
sorts of other stuff going
Yeah.
on there. So why have you suddenly taken this
Anti-whiteness. I'm anti-white, which is why Lavender Corps should stop being white immediately.
position?
I think the better question is, where the hell is everyone else? This is the most obvious moral position.
What does that mean? Like, I hated that the moment she opens her mouth, it's only empty platitudes, empty, vague platitudes, all the time.
Entire world to take. Like Hamas, these are not good people. Hezbollah, the Houthis, these are not good people. So the fact
Okay, sure.
that the progressive fringe is now standing with the literal fucking terrorists, like, what the hell are we thinking? This is not very difficult. So for me, it's really been a realization because
this is, and I see her doing this. I've seen her doing this in the past. I've seen her friends do this. They will take these fringe positions and they will sort of project it on the rest of the left wing.
there have been so many things over the last decade that I've just shut my mouth about and I've gone along with. And it's really at a point now.
Yeah. It's like in that secret chat that leaked when you said that you shut up about the non-binary people that are trying to take over the ship of transness. Yeah, I know. That's one of those things that you just shut up about.
Where it's gut check time. This is principles time. Whose team are you on? Are you on
Principles time.
team democracy? Or are you on team burn everything down? And it's been...
Okay, what does that mean? Are these the choices, really? Team democracy and team burn everything down? What kind of simpleton logic is that?
really disillusioning to see just how few people on my own side have principles. I always thought that what...
Again, every time she opens her mouth, it's just empty platitudes. Principles. What principles? Everybody has principles.
we were doing was about making the world better. And it's been very eye-opening to see it's actually about personal power.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question that will sort of sound a little bit like an
Personal power.
told you so or anything, but it's not.
I mean, it's totally not about personal power for you, and fame, and clout, and recognition. It's all totally not about that for you.
Intended in that
Sure.
way. I guess a lot.
Miss, I had no choice but to work for a segregationist in the past, because how else was I supposed to chug along?
A lot of people who are in our position, Francis and I both always thought of ourselves as liberal and on the left, and we worked in a very progressive comedy industry in the UK. And what happened with us is we said what you're saying now
Right.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we became, Nazi terror.
And to
far
be
right.
fair, I was part of the crowd that was shouting you down and calling you those names.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
No, well, you weren't
Yeah.
shouting me down personally, but
I'm talking about
yeah.
people like you saying that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's because your principles, quote unquote, just are like a flag on the wind. Whatever direction the wind blows, you go.
So I guess
Whatever you think will get you most capital, personal power, you will sort of follow that. Simple.
I'm curious what you think is going to happen, first of all, with you now, because it's sort of the way it has happened today is anyone who was willing to challenge that fringe that you're talking about, which is anti-Western, it's anti-male, it's anti-white, it's
That's right.
anti-Jewish, etc.,
Anti-Western, another empty slogan.
would say what you're saying, what we've been saying for years, and they would immediately become evil, right-wing, Nazi, far-right, etc. And that's kind of it. And no one else would stand up and say anything.
That's right.
As has happened. So what are you
It's
expecting?
just such an empty conversation so far. Like nothing concrete is being said, nothing specific is being said. Who are they talking about?
To happen?
Well, I've lost more friends than I can count, right?
That's okay. That's great.
So I'm very much trying to make new friends. I think the
That's, you can interpret this in many ways.
long-term path of this is progressivism and socialism in the United States. It's a cultural dead end. This is not going to go anywhere.
Oh, progressivism is a dead end.
There's no universe where like progressives win power and manage to get a ton of congressional seats and pass the legislation that I believe in. It is devolved into, exactly as you say, a bunch of culture war nonsense that is not.
I told you, see? It's exactly as I told you. She's taking the fringe positions and she's projecting it onto the whole idea of progressivism. That things that are progressive are just a dead end because people with fringe extreme positions exist. That is brilliant. That is just an amazing, great, amazing, cool, even.
Not about policy, and now literally siding with terrorists. So, I've had so many conversations with friends about this because every single progressive activist that I know is really frustrated with this destructive.
But you just said that progressiveness is a dead end. And now you talk about your frustrated progressive friends. So which is it?
Tendency that we have. And all of us are going.
You think like your progressive friends are a dead end? Just call them that.
Can we do? Your industry has audience capture where you kind of get into a lane and you can't challenge your own audience because your numbers will drop. I think in the progressive space, there's very much the same thing where there's this tendency to go lefter and lefter.
What is the progressive space? Since you just quoted your progressive friends that are frustrated, are they not part of the progressive space?
And lefter and lefter. And now we're at a point where we can't even say things like trans women don't have periods without people getting really upset about that. Look at my mentions literally right now. So someone's got to stand up and go, this is not right. This is crazy town. I didn't get into progressive politics to talk about trans women having periods. I got into progressive.
Well, then don't talk about it. You say you don't want to talk about it, and then you do. You just mentioned your mentions. I really don't want to talk about it, but my mentions on Twitter. If you really didn't want to talk about it, you wouldn't talk about it. And you just talk about the politics.
Politics to pass fucking healthcare.
This is so stupid.
So we're either serious about course correcting on this cultural dead end.
You know what you do when you don't want to talk about something? You don't talk about something. You don't talk about it. That's it. It's that easy. It's that easy not to talk about something when you don't want to. Sincerely.
Or Donald Trump and MAGA are going to win everything, and the pain for the Democratic Party is going to be extreme. We've got to start.
Yes, it's totally fault of progressivism that if Donald Trump is going to win.
Talking more to people in the middle, and we need to be reaching out to sane Republicans, in my view.
Brianna, don't you think part of the problem is when it comes, look, and both sides suffer with this, but I think the left suffer with this more. It's this purity ritual that you have. You are not left unless you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and
what are the A, B, C, D, E, F, G? That's a pretty important thing. What are these things?
all of a sudden, the moment you challenge one of those tenets, you're out.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but what are the tenets, quote unquote? That is a pretty important question. Yeah, if someone sort of breaks the tenet of certain groups of people deserving basic decency and basic rights, then yeah, I think they should be out. That's right, even if it's a tenet that they break. So I think I don't know. I think it will honestly depend on what those tenets are, no?
I mean, again, look at my mentions. You can see this firsthand. It's not enough to, I am as progressive as you can get.
No, you're not. Is this a joke? How can you say that you're as progressive as you can get? When you were joking about a trans woman being manly or something in your private chat. You're as progressive as it gets? That's very depressing. Saying, like,
universal health care. I want structural solutions to heal this gaping wound of racism that's existed in our country since slavery.
what are these solutions? Of course you're gonna say, because you're just all you can do is empty platitudes. Vague, empty platitudes.
Name a progressive policy. I'm very much in favor of it. But when it comes to the optics, right, we've got to start having more serious conversations about how people perceive us. People perceive progressives as assholes. That's just the truth. A decade ago during...
Who perceives progressive as assholes? Who? Who are those people that perceive progressive as assholes? You just said you have friends that are progressive, that are frustrated with things. Are those people perceived as assholes? Who are the people that are perceived as assholes? Like, this is literally a comeback to the anti-SJW era. We're looping back. We're back. 2016 is back. We're haunted. We're cursed.
Gamergate, people thought
There's no escape.
White male gamers were the assholes. I've got news for you. Today, it's trans Twitter, it's socialist Twitter, it's terrorist sympathizer
Whatever these things even mean.
Twitter. It's us. We're the ones doxing people. We're the ones sending death threats. We're canceling everyone in sight. And at the end of the day, people are not going to trust assholes with power. I'm sorry. It's just...
That is such That is such an incoherent ramble. I'm sorry.
It's the truth.
And you said at the start of this conversation something that I found very interesting. You basically said that you had reservations about things that had happened before October 7th. What were those things that you shut your mouth over? And
there you go. Please get into specifics of anything. Please. Please do it. I'm begging.
Part of that question is, do you regret it now, seeing what it's become?
I definitely do. So let me give you a really specific example.
Yes, please. For once, give us a specific example.
I was running for Congress in 2018, right? You had the Women's March, and you had elements of the Women's March that were out there with this pro-Palestine, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic nonsense.
So pro-Palestine is inherently anti-Jewish and anti-Semitic, and pro-Palestine is inherently nonsense. Got it. Got it. That is such a logical and well thought out position.
Very anti-Israel and veering into the most anti-Semitic language that you could possibly have. That was wrong. I made the decision to keep my mouth shut, which was a tremendous error in judgment. And because people like me...
What is this pose?
...shut up in those years, it kept getting worse. And those seeds kept growing, and now it's basically taken over the entire progressive movement.
What? This is... I'm sorry. What did you just say? Are you joking? What has taken... Anti-Semitism has taken the entire progressive movement? Is that what you're saying? Anti-Jewishness has taken over the entire progressive movement? True. That is true. Kiskara. That is absolutely true.
I don't know if it can be saved in time. And you can go into any number of issues, like self-ID with trans people, or...
So what is your view on self-ID with trans people exactly?
I remember during Gamergate, there was...
Oh my God, shut up about Gamergate. Enough. Enough is enough. Please, let Gamergate rest in peace.
this expansionist thing that it wasn't enough to talk about the number of women we were hiring in the game industry. Now we had to obliterate whiteness as something that we were featuring in
Do
game.
you even know what whiteness is? Do you even know what you're talking about when you invoke these terms?
So I'm like, it's a little bit extreme, but we'll go along with it. So it was
I don't understand what's being talked about, but it's a little bit extreme.
just one more step after another. And now it's 10 years later. Look at where we are. We are completely
Where are we?
unelectable. This strategy is failing.
I suppose the question that I'm curious about, and I hear people on left and right saying this often, and I don't understand why they say it. So, and you did say it, so I'm curious to explore this. You called the culture war nonsense.
It is.
Well, you say it is, and I suppose it depends. What exactly do you mean by that, first of all, before I jump in with my opinion?
We have different jobs, right? You are a public advocate and a public figure, and you have a very specific agenda that is pro-free speech. One I agree with.
There's a Ukraine segment here. I've got Ukraine. The problem with the border. What Biden got right. The Democrats need to grow a pair. Okay. The trans debate. Okay.
But my job is different. My job is public policy. My job is to get candidates elected. And
You suck at your job. I'm gonna be honest. You suck at your job.
my job is to back channel specific bills to get them passed.
Right.
So in my view,
What are those specific bills? Can you share with us some of your bill ideas that you really want passed?
as soon as you get something like family medical leave and you turn it into a right versus left culture war,
Oh, sure.
you have automatically lost the
Oh,
conversation.
yeah. No, that I agree with you about. I
Yeah.
guess the reason I ask you, Brian,
Again, empty statement. How do you turn it into a whatever?
is that the way I see what's going on, and I'll lay it out for you the
Sure.
way that I see it, and
Sure.
you feel free to pick away at it, challenge, whatever, is here's my conception of the culture war as it happens. I feel that there is a determined, organized attempt to undermine the basic building blocks of our civilization.
Yes.
And
The fuck does that mean? The basic building blocks of our civilization. What is that? What does that mean? Undo the basic building blocks of our civilization. Another meaningless platitude. We've got so many of them. They're overwhelming.
those of us who are willing to A, see that, and B,
Yes.
say something about it, are called culture warriors. That's what people say about me, for example. Oh, he's just a culture warrior. And my view is our culture is really important.
I agree.
Our culture is why we are where we are. Our culture is why we're successful. Our culture
It's just a meaningless statement. Again.
is why our
And a
civilization.
fundamental misunderstanding of what quote-unquote culture is. No cultures exist in isolation. All cultures interact and affect one another all of the time, especially in our globalized whole thing that we have now. Where people from all over the world, from different cultures, travel all the time and intermingle. It's just a meaningless statement. Culture is in flux constantly. There's no such thing as preserving culture. There's no such thing as a building block of a specific civilization.
is rich and powerful and dominant around the world
Sure.
because of our culture.
Yeah.
So
This is just stupid. I'm sorry.
if people on the
Our
progressive
culture. What is our culture?
left, and it is people on the progressive left, there are some on the right now too, in response, I think. If there are people who want to say that those building blocks
How
are
to say so much without basically saying anything?
evil or
Right.
wrong or bad, I think it's important to push back against that and to prevent them from succeeding.
Yeah.
That's how I see the culture war. So to me, defending our culture isn't nonsense. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. Define your culture. And I'll I'll show you like a million influences from different cultures. The building blocks of your culture come from different cultures. That is the reality of it.
Yeah, and so if you're defining it that way, I'm 1,000% on board with you.
Well, then you're an idiot.
I think there's a growing
You don't think about any of this. Ever.
tendency on the progressive side to try to burn everything inside down. They're the mirror image of MAGA. They're
What does that mean? Burn everything.
accelerationist. They want to burn democracy, like our
Who wants to burn democracy?
institutions, our news, everything in sight to the ground, right? They want to burn the idea of gender to the ground itself. This is not a way for a culture
Oh, of course, a fundamental misunderstanding of what gender abolitionism is as well.
to survive. Like they think the United States is the biggest evil in the world. Like they just don't, do they not know what has happened in Syria over the last decade? Like they just have so little information. So I fully agree with you there. What I'm saying is if we are serious about public policy, it makes a lot of sense to stop treating.
I love how this person always talks about public policy, public policy, public policy, but never says what that public policy should be. Jesus.
Everyone on the other fucking side like they're your enemy. We've got to get buy-in from more people. I think my theory of change from here is I think there are a lot of Republicans and moderates out there that think that the corporations are screwing over normal people and they will stand with you on.
And yet the Republican Party is being ruled by Trump extremists. But let's just ignore that, shall we? Let's just ignore that the GOP in reality is basically Trump's party now.
Policies that address their actual lives. They're not going to do that if they've got to pretend all this crazy stuff is true at the same time.
What crazy stuff? Name the crazy stuff.
We've got to get buy-in from them.
I think part of the problem, Brianna, and look, I'm going to be absolutely honest.
Sure.
What am I supposed to get from all of this?
You when my frustrations with the left is that I see the crazies on the left.
Yeah.
And I see the moderates, the people who I would listen to, the people I think, actually, you've got a real point here, particularly when it comes to economics. And then...
What economics? She's not made a point about economics. Not a single point about economics has been made.
I'd see them not do anything with the nutters over there. And I'm like, well, here's the thing, mate. If you're not going to deal with the nutters over here, how are you going to deal with Apple?
And we did this to MAGA.
What?
Right? You had the Nazis marching in Charlottesville. My side said every single Republican is exactly the same as the Nazis marching on Charlottesville. That's exactly how we treated them. Why does the right have to keep their crazies in line and we don't have to do that? You're completely right. This is
It's not about the right having to keep their
double standard. He's in line. And that's exactly how we treated them. Why does the right have to keep their crazies in line?
It's not about the right having to keep their crazies, quote unquote, in line. It's about the extremist Trumpists being in charge of the GOP right now. That's the problem. The terrorist, quote unquote, sympathizers are not in charge of the Democratic Party. That's the difference.
And we don't have to do that. You're completely right.
Trump fanatics are in charge of the GOP.
This is a double standard. I need help pulling this around, and I can't. I can't do this by myself.
But I guess my point is, why is there not more? Why is there not more backbone within the left to be able to come and stand out? Is it because they're scared of them? Is it because these people...
Scared of who? None of the people on the fringe on the left, of the so-called fringe, are in any position of power or influence.
Actually have a disproportionate sense of power. is there something else going on? And this is a genuine question on my behalf because I don't understand why.
Do you want the real answer or do you
Yes.
want the political answer?
I want the real answer.
I used to think
Jesus Christ. You want the real answer, the political one. You want the tea? You want to hear the truth? The real God honest truth?
completely full of shit. When you talked about cancel culture, I was like, just get over it. You've got every privilege in the world, and now they've run this playbook on me. I understand what happens when they go after your livelihood and your friends, and they make a price to just speak your mind and stand up to them. These are cultural bullies, and the truth is there's
Boo-hoo, cry me a river.
every incentive to keep your mouth shut and just let the movement get crazier and crazier.
What does that
So
mean?
this is hard choice time. This is gut check time.
What?
We either stand up to these crazies, we get back to basics. That means liberalism in the sense, if you want to make an offensive joke, God bless. That's what the First Amendment
Okay, liberalism is when you want to make an offensive joke, God bless. That's amazing.
is about. We've got to be willing to talk to people we disagree with. We can't just, every time someone has a different opinion than us, load it up with moralistic language so we win the argument and they're a terrible person and call it a day and never have a discussion about anything. There's no incentive to do this. Look at what's happened to my reputation since October 7th. It's
Your reputation? What reputation? What do you mean? What are you talking about? What reputation? What reputation are you even talking about? What was your reputation before October 7th? This is ridiculous. It's just silly. Reputation. Hold on.
been brutal. I think it's almost a character flaw.
But there comes
I don't even know what your reputation was supposedly before October 7th.
a point, Brianna,
Yeah.
where you either let this kind of nonsense continue and you see the decimation of everything that you believe in,
Yeah.
or you stand up. There's got to be a time, because you can't keep being supine about these issues and expecting them to go away.
I completely agree. Look at what we're doing with the trans children debate. This is such a good example. Okay. Y'all may not agree with me. I think there are some children that need access to healthcare to transition. I don't think the system is working well now.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Brianna will.
But I think some need to get through. We need to look at this system and patch the holes. What is the progressive left's answer?
What are the holes? What does it mean to patch them? What does that mean? What does any of that mean? The answer is, it means nothing. Hello, Jess, the one you know.
To any parent that has a question on any of that, it is shut the fuck up.
With that, I don't even know what that means, to be honest. I don't even know. So what? When a parent asks a doctor, so how should we proceed with my child? How can I help my child? That's a question. That is any question about the topic. Do then trans activists go to the parent and say, shut the fuck up? Is that what happens when a parent asks, how can I best help my child? Shut the fuck up. Is that what they hear? Is that truly what happens? What sort of questions do the parents ask?
Is don't ask those questions.
What questions? What are the questions? You know, this sort of things are pretty important. What questions? The hell does any of that mean? What does any of that even mean?
These questions hurt our feelings. We're talking about public healthcare policy. We've got to move back to science.
What policy? What science? Like, what?
And back to reality. And
I don't know what any of that means.
I guess, like, from your point of view, what is wrong with progressives that we're not doing this? Why do you think I'm one of like 5?
Well, I think you put your finger on it when you talk about the consequences for you. By the way, this happens on the right increasingly too.
Sure.
I wrote an article about my critique of, I praised him for some things, but also critiqued his comments about Russia and Ukraine. Tucker Carlson, I wrote an article called Tucker Carlson and the Woke Right, and someone disinvited me from a party that and you're just going, you're just the mirror image. You
Woke
want to,
right.
you don't believe in diversity of opinion.
Right.
You just want your opinion regurgitated. So tribes generally enforce the whatever rules of the tribe through any means necessary in order to do that. So I understand that. The question I wanted to ask you, I guess, is you mentioned that 6 years ago or 10 years ago, it's one or two questions I want to ask you. People like you would have been criticizing people like us at the time or whatever.
That's right.
And would have said cancel culture doesn't exist until you personally experience it. And I've heard that from a lot of people who have
That's amazing. That's great.
the switch that you're going through. What was it back then that drove you to behave in that way?
I thought that
In
people.
what way? Okay, the summary is Brianna Wu has sit down with these two guys and is talking about everything is woke, everything is bad. She used to shut up about all the wokeness, the fringe left is taking over the entire progressive movement. In fact, progressiveness is a dead end, and her progressive friends are frustrated. Even though she said that progressiveness is a dead end, so even her progressive friends, by her own logic, should be a dead end. That is basically a summary that I'm giving you. Also, we must go back to the basics. We must go back to principles and policy. That's basically the gist of it. Have I given you a good summary? Have I given you a really good summary of this conversation so far? Do you feel like I've informed you?
People like you had all the power, and I thought that we had no power, and I thought that it was the way to get to a better
Oh yes, because the left has so much power. So much power.
world. And you know what? We've tried my version of the progressive playbook for 10 years.
What is your version of the progressive playbook? I don't even know. I don't even know what that means.
Telling comedians, telling jokes we don't like to shut up. That doesn't work.
No.
The left has had, like, look at what's happened to feminism. Do you know how guilty I feel about this? We've lost Roe
Guilty.
in the United States. And
Yes, because of progressives. Absolutely, yes. Roe v. Wade was overturned because of progressivism and the fringe left. Of course, that makes perfect sense, of course. That is absolutely a logical explanation, a logical retelling of the events.
access to abortion. Feminism should be a very strong public force right now, and it's not. It's never been weaker. Why is feminism so unappealing to so many people? It's because rather than talking about real policy that will affect people's lives, like daycare for children, or working wages, or reproductive health care, or access to a gynecologist, we've defined it to these boutique, like, luxury nonsense.
Yes, oh God.
It's culture wars.
It's wild that she says this because I used to be an anti-feminist and now I am a radical feminist. She's out of touch. She's so out of touch with the feminist movement. She doesn't even understand feminist theory now. us to be the person criticizing her, but it doesn't seem like she has learned from Gamergate.
Stuff. So normal women are out there going, this is just not relevant to me. So it's just it's.
And the other
It's a
thing
failure.
feminism
Yeah.
did as well is feminism is such a broad church. It's a hard word to use accurately.
Road what? Church?
But once
Did I just hear the word church?
feminism is such a broad church, it's a hard word to use accurately. But once you start trying to convince at least some women that they're supposed to hate men, you're going to lose the audience very quickly, because women generally don't hate men.
That's right.
They want to build a life with a man and have kids and blah, blah, blah.
I'm fond of my husband, so I agree. with that.
As am I, even though I'm not a woman. Second question I wanted to ask you, and this sounds like a therapy session for me and Francis, and we've earned it.
Oh, God.
Sure.
Yeah,
After 6
yeah.
years.
After what you've done.
I'm sorry.
After 6 years.
This is embarrassing.
No, but I will tell you the moment I realized that the left stopped
This is just embarrassing.
caring about reality.
That's right.
It was 2016, no, it was 2017. And I saw Steve Bannon go from talk show to talk show to talk show to talk show. And all he did was explain how they won the election.
Okay.
And nobody listened. Nobody listened to what he was saying. Because the agenda was the only way these people could win is because they're racist and because they're evil and whatever. And nobody listened to what he was saying. And what he was saying is, this country is in deep trouble. This country is a place where people feel so alienated from the economic opportunities.
Yeah, all people say that. You know who also talked about the country being in deep trouble and people being isolated, etc.? Adolf Hitler also talked about the country being in deep trouble. What does that even mean?
That used to be available to them and their families. They feel so alienated from, the general narrative about their country has now become negative, which is why the phrase "Make America Great Again" works, even if you don't like it. And I was listening to what he was saying, not from a perspective of like,
Yeah, because those sort of populist narratives work. The Nazi Party's whole thing was basically make Germany great again.
so enthusiastic about this guy and his political leader being elected, but from the point of view of like, maybe there's something he's saying, having just won an election that nobody expected him to win, that people on the left need to take into account, so that by the time the next election comes around, you've learned the lessons, you're addressing people's concerns, and now you can come in with your message of, how do we make America work for the working person? Like, that's to me the left-wing message. How to get America working for the working person.
That's right.
We'll get you back.
This is just empty platitudes. We've just watched 21 minutes of empty platitudes. It's amazing.
To the interview in a minute. But first, that, my friends, is...
Nope. No. No way. No chance.
We learned all the wrong lessons from the
He didn't.
Trump years, right? The correct lesson that the left should have learned from Donald Trump was normal Americans that don't follow politics as closely as people like I do, have 5 newspaper subscriptions, look at the polls every day, talk to donors, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Normal people don't think the system is working for them, and they want to break it, if you really want to get down to it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we believed this really comforting lie that half the country was lost and not worth talking to.
Who believed that? Hello, lettuce. Who believed that?
And they were all racists, and they were disposable, and we stopped even
Disposable?
imagining a way to live with one another. There's no future for the Democratic Party where we don't get goddamn serious about listening to the people that don't have faith in the system and earning their trust. And so much of that starts with the conversation, and we are failing This is why Biden is losing. It's not that Biden himself does not stand for this stuff. I actually think he's been a really good president. But the culture of the Democratic Party is so elitist and arrogant and unwilling to listen to ideas that we don't agree with, and treating half the country like they are assholes. Like
This, Jesus Christ. This is all so empty. She's not saying anything. Who treated half the country like assholes?
this is not a formula for a democracy to survive.
Do you know, I was reading this. I think it might have been you that said it, or it came up in conversation, that the number one predictor for a marriage failing is not infidelity, it's not arguments, it's none of those things. It's contempt.
That's right.
And when I see, and it's not just progressives
Wait, what?
here.
Contempt? What?
It's contempt. A marriage failing is, I think it might have been you that said it, or it came up in conversation, that the number one predictor for a marriage failing is not infidelity, it's not arguments, it's none of those things. It's contempt.
What does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? Contempt.
Right.
And when I see...
For what? Contempt for what?
And it's not just progressives here, but also progressives in the UK. The contempt that they have for working class people, and let's be blunt about it, particularly in the UK, and I'm sure over here, white working class people, the way they talk about them, the way they address them, they're rednecks, they're stupid, they're racist. And then...
Okay, I'm pretty sure that the term redneck is a term that is pretty specifically dedicated to the people of the South, no? Isn't that a South-specific term, rednecks?
And they go, oh, why didn't you vote for us?
Like they're some dumb animal to manipulate. It's insulting. So let me tell you what changed my mind on this. Like the big reason, the thing that changed my paradigm on this was running for office, because it gets you off of fucking Twitter and out there in the real world, where you've got to go knock on doors and just talk to normal people. And it's like, oh shit, the stuff we're talking about on Twitter is not what they believe.
I mean, you're the one fixating on Twitter, so...
So I think there is a lot of theory crafting in progressive spaces where they've got a lot of academic ideas about how elections and how power works. And I think it's fundamentally divorced from reality. Now, to be fair...
Oh, yes, because Brianna Wu is totally not divorced from reality. No one is as in touch with reality as Brianna Wu. The number one in touch with reality, Brianna Wu.
The Democratic Party has been really poor at bringing younger people in and showing them how our system works, how NGP works, how canvassing works, how data works, how, get out the vote works, like bread and butter election stuff. And that is very much a generational institutional failure. But at the same time, like, these people are not showing up. There's every single opportunity to do that. So go out there in the real world, actually talk to the voters you want to represent, and I think we can move forward.
Because I think what a lot of people are frustrated about with the left and progressives in general is focusing on culture.
That's right.
And actually not talking about the things like you touched on before.
Sorry, what?
All that focusing on people are frustrated about with the left and progressives in general is focusing on culture.
But you did a whole rant on culture. You did a whole rant on why your culture is important, your culture, and preserving your quote-unquote culture is, the most important thing. And that your culture is the thing that makes the world work. And now you're saying that it's the left that's hyper-focusing, over-focusing on culture? It's just been 26 minutes, roughly, and you're already contradicting what you said before about the importance of culture, because you're saying the left is over-fixating on it.
That's right.
And actually not talking about the things like...
So is it important or is it not important, culture?
Touched on before that actually really matter, which is economics.
That's right.
The fact that people, the gap between rich and poor is widening, it seems...
Ah, yes, the left famously uninterested in the gap between the rich and the poor. Like the least self-interested party in the whole thing, the left.
So, corporations are becoming, particularly big multinational corporations, are becoming more and more powerful. Governments are more in hock to these corporations. This is what the left should be doing. They should be challenging this.
100%. I think we don't understand how easy we could have it on the left. If we stopped this nonsense and we were
What nonsense?
a party that unapologetically stood for all those things.
What things? What the fuck? Oh, if only we quit with the nonsense and stood for all of these things. What does any of that mean? What does any of that mean? What is...
For working class people, I think we would take the country for 2 generations. And we just can't.
Yes, if only we stopped doing nonsense and stood for those things, then we would have won and everything would have been perfect.
So,
Do you think part of the reason for that, Brianna, is, and please correct me if I'm
Sure.
wrong, this is just stuff people say. I don't know if it's true. I'm just curious
for
to
it.
explore it with you. The elite of the Democratic Party, it's probably true of the Republican Party to a large extent, but you'd expect that more, is in hock to the big corporations,
Yeah.
the big tech.
course.
They're all working, colluding together. So I guess what incentives do they have to take the correct position on all of
I
this?
think that's, I
What is the correct position?
mean, this is the
I
problem
haven't even established that.
with power. I can tell you when I ran for Congress, I spent 8 hours a day in a chair fundraising, like basically calling for money for my campaign. And, you are very beholden to the donors that bring you money. This is why a policy I believe in is public financing of elections.
We
I
have
think it
that in
would
the
be-
UK.
Does it work for y'all?
Better than here,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like something's got to change. You're right. The incentive structure is just not there. And there's a lot of incentives for Democrats to say the right things, but when the votes come up on the House floor, to not do the right things. So in my estimation, y'all may not agree with it. I still think we're better than the Republicans, but I think until that changes, people are not going to change their assessment of us.
And Brianna, you said that you think Joe Biden has been a good president.
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be a lot of people.
Depends on what? Depends. There is no president that is just good across the board. People are bad on this, good on that. And then you have to tally it up and decide.
In the comments who are going to be, shall we say, politely disagreeing.
Sure.
Okay, why is it that you think he's been a good president?
So you talked about the value of institutions. I think at the end of the day, something I really value is our justice.
And for example, I wouldn't call him that great on the Israel-Palestine thing. I wouldn't even call him, like, people praise him on Ukraine, but then there are many problems with how aid is handled with Ukraine as well, so...
Department working normally. I value our military having a clear chain of command. I don't know if you remember, but the State Department was changing hands. Rex Tillerson saying he had no faith. You had generals resigning under Trump. You had Trump trying to blow up NATO, something I assume you don't agree with. There is a path to normalcy for the United States and
I have no clue what normalcy means.
liberalism, like lowercase liberalism and democracy. In my estimation, I think Joe Biden stands better for than the competition.
Okay. Joe Biden is a good president because he wants to uphold basic democracy, unlike the other guy. I'm not sure that's as big of a, winner of an argument as she thinks it is. Yes, Joe Biden respects basic democracy, so that makes him a good president. What sort of a bar is that? What sort of a bar is that?
I don't mean to offend anyone in the audience, but it's really scary to me how much some of the Republican rhetoric is reflecting Vladimir Putin's talking points. Now, party aside, my left versus right politics end at the United States border. I'm an American, and I think Joe Biden has been so much better for our national security than Trump has been.
Well, that's interesting because
Okay.
I was actually, maybe it's a good opportunity before I jump in for you to lay out some more of the domestic policies that you're happy about, because my personal view, and we can get into this, particularly what you said about NATO.
I can't wait for them to get into Ukraine, which is soon, actually.
Don't think that that's what Donald Trump was doing. I think he was trying to get NATO to pay its own way.
You don't think Trump will blow up NATO if he's reelected?
My sense of what he was doing, you mentioned about the past, was he was trying to get the NATO member countries to pay their fair share so that NATO would be stronger, so that NATO would not be so...
Yes, by saying if any of the countries fall short, Russia can do whatever the hell it wants with them. Such an amazing statement. And it actually made European countries doubt the nuclear umbrella as well. So that's great.
So reliant on the United States. I thought that was, he warned Germany about taking Russian energy. He warned them about paying their fair share. And I think he's been proven entirely right. The one area of this that I feel that I do understand somewhat is the geopolitical dimension. I think Joe Biden has been a disaster.
Really?
His pullout from Afghanistan signaled tremendous weakness, which is, I think, why you end up with Ukraine being invaded.
No, that's, oh my God, that's so stupid. That has been discussed to hell and back. That's not true at all.
Afterwards as well. So on the geopolitics, I wouldn't agree with you, actually. I think Joe Biden has been
Can we go one at a time through these? Because this is important. So Afghanistan, how long have we been in Afghanistan? For 20 years, right? And I'm not going to do the thing. I know a lot of people on the left like to say, oh, Donald Trump agreed to this and then Joe Biden just executed. Fuck that. You know, Joe Biden's our president. He made the call. Are we supposed to, like, I did not support us invading Afghanistan the way that George Bush did it. I literally led protests for years. That was a situation with the Taliban there poised to take over. We had United States troops there for what, 20 years? Basically keeping this. Are we supposed to keep them there forever? I mean, what are the alternatives?
So what I'm saying is not so much... I agree with you. The United States would have been better off destroying Al-Qaeda without staying 100%. There forever, right? The Taliban would always come back anyway. However, the way the pullout was done is the issue.
Sure.
It signaled that America, it wasn't that America left, it's that America abandoned its allies.
I hear what you're saying.
And that sent a message.
Yeah.
It sent a message that resonated around the world. The word that America gives you is not worth the paper that it's written on.
That is a very fair criticism.
And when you put...
I mean, Trump wants to abandon Ukraine. And Trump said... And Trump wants to abandon all the NATO countries that fall short with the payment.
Pull out on that basis, what you signal to others is, well, are we Taiwan's ally?
Sure.
Are we Ukraine's ally? Or are we just saying that? And do we have the resolve
Trump wants to abandon Ukraine
to back our allies when push comes to shove? Right. And what's happened consistently has been, whether that's Afghanistan, whether that's Ukraine, probably Taiwan also, is the United States talks a good game.
That's right.
But it doesn't actually do the things it needs to do.
Who blocked the aid for 6 months for Ukraine? Who? Who was responsible for blocking the aid for Ukraine? What group?
So on the geopolitics of it,
well,
my own
can
view...
I respond to that, actually?
Yeah, of course.
So I think that is a very fair criticism. It broke my heart to see the Taliban flag flying over a United States airstrip as that happened. Anyone that loves their country and loves democracy and loves Western values, that was a really hard day. At the same time, you know, I think if you're talking about why is the United States perceived as weaker than we were, there have been a lot of really good democratic policies. I think Operation Infinite Resolve in the fight against ISIS in the Obama years was excellent. We've never had a national conversation about how aggressive and excellent Obama was at taking on ISIS and pushing back on this. So I think if you look at things like Ukraine directionally, what in my view makes us weak is when the Republicans are holding up these bills to provide them arms. I think that
Here you go. At least that.
is a massive error in judgment. So you look at who voted for what. And I think the Democrats, like, I don't have these
Well, they
numbers.
blocked the vote to begin with. Mike John.
Memorized, overwhelmingly voted for this and barely passed with Republican support.
Sure, but
so,
I can't believe this.
Brianna, that isn't my argument.
Sure.
Since we're on this, let's just close
Let's
this
do
loop.
it. Ukraine. Now it's getting into the topic of Ukraine. Okay, let's go.
As you know, a big supporter of us supporting Ukraine,
That's
at least
right.
in the beginning.
As am I.
Right.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
What we're doing now is not supporting Ukraine.
How do you feel?
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
What we're doing now is giving them just enough support so they can continue fighting.
Correct.
But they're not going to win.
That's right.
They're not going to get the outcome they want.
I agree.
And America isn't going to get the outcome it wants.
I agree.
What the situation needed,
Trump wants to abandon Ukraine.
and still needs, is somebody who is prepared to simultaneously carry a big stick and do a deal at the same time. Ultimately, this is how this is going
Oh, so it's one of those people that just say Ukraine should negotiate. It's just one of those people. Amazing.
to end. And what you need is someone who's going to say, either we do a deal on the basis of what's happening on the ground right now, which means, sadly, Russia is going to get pieces of Ukraine that are
There you go. For all that I'm for support of Ukraine, the reality is it's just one of those many idiots that say Ukraine should just do a peace deal, abandon all of the territory that Russia has taken, condemn all of the people living in those areas to be either displaced or to stay and be basically terrorized by Russia, tortured, killed, who knows. Mass graves for all of us.
didn't have before.
Of course. For all the empty platitudes, once we get into specifics, it all ends up being the same idiotic thing as always. How shocking. How unexpected. You know? How unexpected.
In exchange for Ukraine having long-term security. And if you, Vladimir Putin, are not going to sign this, then I am going to give the Ukrainians everything. That's what the president should be doing. And
You know what the president should be doing? The president should just give Ukraine everything. Skip the bullshit and just give Ukraine everything that it needs. Without saying Ukraine should do a deal and give up territory. This is just idiotic. Why not just give Ukraine everything to push out Russia from its territory? This is asinine.
personally think Donald Trump is far more likely to say that than Joe Biden. However, let's just...
Yes, I know. Trump is far more likely to abandon Ukraine and say you have to make a deal and give up territory. Yes, I agree. That's not a good thing.
Let's just agree to disagree
Can I just agree with
Sure.
that? I think that's really well said.
Yeah.
Oh, you agree with that? That is well said, you idiot. Well said.
You know, we've gotten
You
into
agree and it's well said. Am I hearing this correctly?
this dynamic where we want to make Ukraine just strong enough that they can
What a joke.
never lose, but not strong enough that they can never win. Now, I'm not a general. I can't appraise if, like, giving them air support is going to lead to World War III or not. But
What the fuck does that mean? I'm not a general, so I cannot evaluate That's not a general's job to evaluate if a political decision will lead to World War III. What? How can you be so out of your depth? How can you speak so... How can you know so little about what you're talking about? I'm not a general, so I don't know if giving air support will lead to World War III. How do you say something so stupid?
I think that more needs to be done. Like just giving them, what is it, the 132 millimeter shells to like hit Russian.
Sorry, what?
Just giving them, what is it, the 132 millimeter shells.
It's 155.
I think that more needs to be done. Like just giving them, what is it, the 132 millimeter shells to like hit Russian, barricades. Like doing
Oh, fuck me.
this forever is not going to let them win the war. We've just decided this lukewarm support. So I think your assessment of this is dead on.
Yes, the assessment... No, it's not dead on. That means the aid should be increased. It doesn't mean that Ukraine should be forced into some peace deal when it has to give up territory.
I guess my point is on that issue is I don't think it's the Democrats are going all out for Ukraine.
Why can't I gift a sub? You should be able to gift a sub. That should be no problem. Maybe refresh the page. It should be no problem. God, that is just... Oh my God. I don't even know. The Ukraine thing, of course, as always, it just ends up being brainless talking about Jesus. Of course. Oh. I don't know. I'm not sure. It should be you should be able to. What does it say? What does it say when you try? That's strange. Let me... I don't even know how to do that. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do it. Donate, no, support. How do you... No. Donate? Is it in the donate thing? Jesus. I don't even know. I sign in. Hold on. Live. Okay, how do... Where is even the option? Oh, subscribe. Okay. Gift sub. User. It works for me. It works for me. I can click and press the... Yeah. It should work. It should work for you as well.
Ukraine and the Republicans are stopping
I
it.
don't
It's more
either.
like Democrats are doing a terrible job. And the Republicans are torn. There's a part of the Republican Party that wants Ukraine to win and would help much more than they're currently doing.
Sure.
And there's the other, you know, what I call the more woke right, so to speak.
The woke right, what does that mean?
Who are, they're anti-Ukraine because they're anti-Western elites. That's kind of their worldview.
Do you think they're compromised in some way by Russia?
No, I think they're compromised by the derangement. You know, they've been staring into the abyss.
Sure.
They've been looking into the progressive abyss for so long. They're now thinking
Oh, good night.
like progressives in their head in many ways.
I hear what
Are you able to donate, Jess? You should test if you're able to donate.
you're saying. I mean, I guess I'm just old enough to remember when
Oh my god. I'm just old enough to remember.
we were able to stick together.
Oh, doesn't work for me, but since I can give you sub, I'll give you some money instead. Thank you. Thank you for the $5. Thank you. Thank you. That is very generous.
On national security issues.
I hope that comes back.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, let's park that because I feel like
ahead,
we're
go ahead.
moving away from the core of the things we've been talking about.
Oh,
You go
boy.
ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say the one thing moving towards domestic policy.
Sure.
Okay.
One of the major criticisms that Republicans and ordinary people are going to have, and
Republicans and ordinary people. Nice.
please explode any myths, is when it comes to the border. There's a lot of people in this country who are very upset, ordinary people, very angry. They're
Yeah, I know. Ordinary people happen to be very susceptible to populist slogans. Yes, I know. That's not a new development.
looking at things like people coming in undocumented. There's crime that's been spiraling. There's, you know, the fentanyl.
What crime that has been spiraling? There's a lot of data that indicates that actually immigrants don't cause crime to be spiraling. So you have to substantiate this somehow. Fentanyl has nothing to do with immigration. It's an unrelated issue.
crisis, and they're thinking to themselves, what the hell is going on with my country?
I fully agree with you. I am a
I
Democrat.
know, because you're an idiot and you just fully agree with everything. You agreed with on the Ukraine thing, which was brain dead.
That wants the border taken far more seriously. Like sex trafficking across our southern border is horrible. I urge you to go read stories about this. It is a nightmare. You cannot be a feminist and want the status quo on all of this. Drugs coming through, you know, I'm sure.
What does being a feminist have to do with immigration and the border? What does that statement mean? You cannot be a feminist and be... What?
You saw the video, the viral video a while back, the woman like with her children under the barbed wire and all that. It is completely normal for a country to need a secure border. And I don't understand.
You're contradicting yourself in your sentence.
Democrats don't take this exponentially more seriously. We can have a conversation about, you know, visas to let people in. We can have a very high number of people that we let in, but we've got to secure the border. And I think it is eminently fair to say the Democrats have failed at this.
And you say you don't know, but to me, it seems utterly perplexing because it
Jesus.
doesn't. I just look at it and I go, unless you've drunk the.
Okay, so I have to go to the toilet for a second. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Join the page. Consider all these nice things. It'll be all okay. It'll all be okay. All right? It'll be good. I'm back. What is the Demonata series?
Progressive Kool-Aid, so we just say, for want of a better word, so much that you think open borders are racist.
What? Progressive gulag? I'm sorry, what did I just hear?
No,
Say for unless you've drunk the progressive Kool-Aid, so we just say
progressive Kool-Aid, sorry.
for want of a better word, so much that you think open borders are racist.
yeah, no human is illegal.
Which was a piece in the Times.
Wait. What is this guy saying? Is that person so stupid that he just contradicted himself? Those people have so... They're so clueless. Did you just hear what he said?
So much that you think open borders are racist.
Yeah, no human is
for want of a better word, you've drunk the progressive Kool-Aid.
You drank... I'm going to repeat word for word what this person is saying. Because I guess those people are just too stupid to formulate their own thoughts. Yeah, he just said that progressives think that open borders are racist.
So we just say, for want of a better word, so much that you think open borders are racist.
Yeah, no human.
Intellectual giants. Intellectual giants.
Human is
Which
illegal.
was a piece in the Times, by the way. Like, oh, I couldn't believe that.
But apart from that, how can you justify it? How can you justify it?
How can you just... I don't know. You just said something very stupid.
Look at the number of fentanyl deaths in this country.
Again, do you want the real answer or do you want the political?
Let's go.
Oh my god. I want the stupid answer. It's the only answer that I can count on from you. Unfortunately.
All right.
Here's the real answer. Democrats don't have balls to stand up to the nut jobs. That's the real answer, because you get called a racist and you're afraid about losing the Latino vote. And, you know, it is...
Can I just push back on that?
Ahead.
As somebody who is half Latin American, whose mother is from Venezuela, I can guarantee you Venezuelans in this country who came here legally, who pay their taxes, who work hard, just like Cubans, just like Puerto Ricans, they're even more pissed off about this because they're like, hang on a second, I jumped through all the hoops. I did all the...
Yeah, that's right. I love this sort of logic. I have a perfect analogy for this sort of logic. When I worked as a teacher in a language school, and you might think this is totally unrelated, but bear with me, this is actually related. I had a student that one day came to me crying because the student was bullied. Was bullied by other kids in the school, beaten up or something along those lines. So he was crying that he was being bullied. So I sort of raised it with the boss of the language school. They raised the issue with the kid's father. And what did the father say? Hey, I went through bullying. I had to go through bullying. I'm alive. I'm well. So, you know, why shouldn't my kid go through bullying if I had to go through bullying and I survived it? It's basically the same sort of logic. The logic of, if I went through bullshit, then everybody has to go through bullshit. I will not tolerate other people not going through bullshit if I had to go through bullshit. That's basically it. Amazing.
The paperwork, I paid my money, I paid my taxes, and I could have just walked in.
Sure. I'm not...
There you go. Exactly. He just formulated those thoughts. If I had to go through bullshit to get here, then why shouldn't everybody? The answer is that we should make lives better for everybody. Not just go with, oh, if people had to deal with horrible things in the past, then everybody has to deal with horrible things in the future.
Saying it's a correct assessment. It's a deeply incorrect assessment, but that's the reason for the fear there.
Right,
you know?
I see. So, but wouldn't that be, if we're talking about Joe Biden being a good president,
Sure.
wouldn't you agree, if you disagree with what's happening on the border, that at least on that issue, he's been terrible?
We just tried to...
No. Like, the same group that blocked the aid to Ukraine also blocked any solutions for the border. So that's amazing.
pass a bill that would have made Democrats extremely unhappy. The progressives were really upset about this bill because it gave the president things to do, like close the border in an emergency, and had some of the strictest restrictions on this. And the Republicans are the ones that defeated that bill because they wanted it to be an election issue. Now,
True. And they also blocked aid to Ukraine over it.
don't mean to get all geeky and policy oriented, but
Don't worry. You're not geeky, you're not policy oriented.
huge part of this is also the lack of immigration judges. We have a huge... Are you aware that in Boston, we're Port City. We sent our immigration judges down to the border in an emergency capacity because they can't even try cases down there. I don't care if you're on the right or the left or open borders there. We should all agree that if you come across the border, you should have a legal process to figure out where you need to go. We don't have the system for that. So
no, I don't agree with that.
Do you not?
No, I don't. I'm a first-generation immigrant to the UK, and my view is nobody should be coming into the country illegally.
Sure.
Right? So
Who
we
determines that,
shouldn't
though?
be sending Boston immigration judges to the south, because they shouldn't be necessary, because the border should be closed. That's what I'm saying.
I think
that's what most people expect, really.
Look, I want this situation handled. I will vote for it. I would vote for any candidate that took that seriously. It's a mess. Democrats have our head on the sands on this. This could make us lose the election if we don't wake the fuck up and take it very seriously. And there's a leftist argument for this. There's a leftist argument for doing all of this. There's so much crime and trauma that happens by these cartels doing this stuff. The fentanyl crisis is 1 billion times worse because of this. There's no excuse for this.
Okay, so just carrying down the thread then, give us some things you think Joe Biden has done that have actually been good domestically.
I mean, domestically,
Let's say.
I think the inflation situation, like every country in the entire world is dealing with inflation.
Yep.
Of course.
And I think that we've actually gotten the United States economy much further back on track.
There were a few
our
things that he got good. That's just, for some reason, I'm blanking out on the whole.
inflation has come down much better compared to the rest of the world. I think on coronavirus, I think people forget just how much like getting vaccines out to people was mismanaged under Donald Trump. He did an A+ job at getting that system like in place and getting vaccines available for people. Reopening schools, I think he did a really good job on that. So I think there's a lot of domestic policy he's actually excelled at.
So I'm going to ask you a question,
Please.
which is it's not particularly pleasant, but it needs to be said.
Go for it.
I very much admire you for coming on the show, Brianna.
Sure.
And I very much admire you for
Okay.
taking tough questions,
Congratulations.
fielding them.
What tough questions? Not a single tough question has been asked.
and dealing with them in the spirit that they're meant. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of other people on maybe that side of the argument or the Democrats strike me as weak, if I'm being blunt.
Oh, no.
If your biggest fear is being called a racist
Sure.
or being said that you're whatever else,
Sexist.
then you shouldn't be anywhere near power. I'm sorry. You're a leader. You're there to make tough decisions.
Who only has the argument that someone's being set? Whatever. This is stupid, of course.
And people are going
What
to
did I expect?
say nasty things about you. Tough. You want the position, you've got to deal with that.
This is why I've been in progressive politics for the last decade. I wanted a Democratic Party with some balls.
This is so stupid. This is so unimaginably stupid.
That would stand up on all these things. The problem is the progressive power base has lost their goddamn minds. So where the fuck are you going to go? You've got the insurgent side of it that's trying to push the Democratic Party to actually get serious about public policy. I believe it, like universal health care. The American healthcare system is completely broken. I had a theory of change that if we were out
You have a theory of change.
there and we pushed
Like, how could he... You mean she? Wait, do you mean one of the hosts or do you mean Brianna Wu? If anything, she has probably asked tougher question of herself than they have. Oh, you mean the guy. Okay.
the traditional corporate Democrats hard from the progressive side, that would get us to better public policy. The problem is the progressive
problem is that I'm just listening to her words. She's saying a lot, but she's saying nothing. That's the biggest issue here, basically.
left is so crazy nowadays. They're worse than the corporate Democrats. So we've got to turn this whole ship around.
The host,
And is that possible?
the most weak-minded freak I've listened to this past week, he doesn't get to sit here and call other people weak when he is fundamentally broken politically.
I don't know. I don't think it's likely, to be really honest with you.
A trans showdown.
So what does the future look like? In our
Amazing.
interview with the brilliant Tim Urban, he
Oh yeah, no. We're not doing that. There's just no way in hell. There's no way in hell we're doing that. It's enough.
My hope in speaking up is I see a lot of people that are in my DMs and they say, Brianna, I agree with you.
Yeah, some of those DMs leaked and it was not a pretty sight, unfortunately for you. So...
And my hope is if enough people like me stand up and we'll start getting real about this stuff, we can start pushing
Again, empty platitudes. Real about what stuff?
the crazies out and get the Democratic Party on a path that makes sense. I don't think that's likely.
I believe that there are DMs that she gets with people agreeing with her. But the question is, what do they agree on? That is the real question.
There's a flip a coin. We're going to see who wins this election. Is it going to be Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And from there, we are going to be in the wilderness without power if we lose, and we're going to have to find a new version of the Democratic Party. I don't know if that's going to be a better version of the
The ashes of the SCC Hippo Pop aren't sending their best.
Democratic Party. So,
Well,
yeah.
let me say something to you,
Please.
but through you to some of the people that follow you that might be interested. I really
Okay, just tell us. Jesus.
believe. You know, I was in Australia recently, and I was
Fascinating.
invited to a dinner where there were a lot of people who were influential
Oh wow, fascinating story.
in Australia, and there were people from both sides of politics there. And the person who invited us, he said, "Look, I don't want the other party to be elected,
That's right.
but at some point they will be.
Yeah,
And I want them to be the very best possible party for Australia,
that's right.
best possible government for Australia."
Why are you just blindly nodding and whatever? You didn't even let him finish, and you already agree with everything he's saying.
And in that spirit, my view is the only way that the left is actually going to start to have a good impact on society is when Donald Trump gets elected again, which I suspect he will be. You don't agree? And I may well be wrong.
I think it's going to be close. I think I see data, and I think I have a perspective on the state efforts that probably informs.
I did see that tweet, yeah. We're gonna go over it on stream. We're gonna turn it into a whole segment.
my
And
opinion on
you're
that.
probably much better informed about it than I am. I'm just operating on a general sentiment kind
Sure.
of basis. But I guess what I'm saying is the mistake that was made in 2016, which you articulated so well, was a failure to take seriously the concerns of the ordinary American.
That's right.
If Donald Trump is elected again, my greatest fear is that instead of doing that, instead of learning the lesson and going, okay,
Learn your lesson.
what are we not listening to? Is it immigration? Okay, we got to change our position on immigration. Is it foreign policy? Okay, we got to adjust. My worry, and I know this is Francis' worry too, because we talk about it all this time, is if Donald Trump is re-elected,
Okay.
you're going to see a progressive meltdown on a scale that's going to dwarf
That's right.
2016.
That's right.
I think, okay, I'm gonna be quite honest. I think a progressive meltdown is the least of our problems if Donald Trump gets reelected. I'm gonna be quite real. You keep prattling on about going back to the basics, about talking about what's important, and now you're talking about a meltdown, a progressive meltdown that's going to happen if Donald Trump wins. Oh yeah, that's a really important thing to discuss. The meltdown.
Which will only make the country worse and the left
That's
way
right.
more unelectable.
Because they
This
don't.
is so stupid. I think there are better. I think there are bigger things to discuss about what will happen when Donald Trump gets elected, other than a meltdown happening.
Don't believe in democracy.
For
But
example, you know, the little thing about Trump forcing Ukraine to give up territory.
fundamentally,
Country worse and the left
That's
way
right.
more unelectable.
because they don't believe in democracy.
They don't believe in democracy. What about Donald Trump? Does he believe in democracy? You know, the guy that actually said multiple times that he wants to overthrow the process. The guy that actually tried to overthrow the electoral process. You know, the one that you believe in so strongly. What the fuck? Oh yeah, if Trump gets elected, then we have to worry about the meltdown of the progressives because they don't believe in democracy. Because Donald Trump totally believes in democracy, with his talking about, I don't know, doing away with the Constitution and trying to, I don't know, just declare himself the winner when he lost the election.
Fundamentally, look
Right.
at the fringe Free Palestine people. There's some people in that.
This is what a way, what a direction to go to when discussing what will happen when Trump will win. Discussing the meltdown of the progressives who don't believe in democracy. I don't even know what to
genuinely
say here.
Scenes of horror out of Gaza, and they want to do something about
It's
it.
like listening to actual children talk about politics. Doesn't seem like they have enough personal experience to understand what they're talking about, or knowledge, or whatever.
And I respect that. At the same time, there are a lot of people in that movement that want democracy and America dead.
Well, they hate America.
Yeah.
They do. They hate our own country.
Yes. So, Jesus, this is,
They do.
Yeah.
When did it become like
says the person that supports Trump
inappropriate?
and says that Trump would be great for Ukraine because he would force Ukraine to make truce and give up its territory.
Appropriate to be on the left and say you love your country and you respect your police officers and your teachers. You respect
1960.
someone. Well, it's not how I feel.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to confront this illiberalism that is just strangling the Democratic Party.
Yes, because Donald Trump is such a liberal.
We've got to get more comfortable with free speech and talking to people that disagree with us. We need to get much more serious about public policy because we're not.
It's so true, and it's genuinely sad to see what's happening
Yeah.
to the left.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who I know, and look, I'm friends with some of them on the right. They're like, ha, look at them, blah, blah, blah. Aren't they this? Aren't they that? And you go, I don't think you understand what is happening to the very fabric of our society.
That's right.
What the fuck does that mean? The very fabric of our society. This again, empty slogan. You could not go with a more empty slogan if you tried.
That's right.
And if this side are going crazy, as you're putting it, what's happening to our society as a whole?
That's right.
And what's happening to your side? Because I'm telling
That's right. That's right. That's right.
you something else. Your side isn't being great either. And the moral decay is happening in a similar, albeit
The moral decay. Oh, the moral decay. Can you elaborate on the moral decay? I want to hear more about the moral decay. Please. Please tell us about the moral decay.
different way at the same time.
I agree. I mean, look, I feel like I have
Yeah, of course you agree. Without even knowing what is being talked about. Of course you'll agree.
extreme problems with MAGA, right? I think in many ways this is an anti-democratic movement as well. So, just because I'm talking at the left today, this is my own side. Like, it's not surprising to you that I don't like the Republicans and don't agree with their policies, right? But I think you're really right. This is about the fabric of the country coming apart. I think you're seeing
whatever that means. Of course it's easy for you to agree because it's a meaningless statement and it's easy to agree with meaningless statements.
this in the UK to a lesser degree, but like your politics tend to follow our own. So
Yeah.
we've got to confront this head on. In my
We
view.
download your crap
totally.
very, very readily in the UK. I suppose one of the things that I was interested in exploring, Brianna, with you as well, is you mentioned when we were talking about you potentially coming on the show that there's probably a lot of areas that we disagree about.
Sure.
Not you disagree with Republicans about. We're obviously not Republicans. So what do you think that is? I'm keen to find that out.
Well,
Let's see what they actually disagree with because she's being very agreeable so far. So
I want to be polite. I think
You don't need to
You
be.
don't
there
need
is-
to be polite.
I think
We're in
generally
America now.
speaking, I think generally speaking, when I watch your stuff, I think you hold the right and the left to two different standards. And I think you're a
Interestingly.
little too tough on the left, but I understand it because I spend more time.
But people
criticizing.
wow. Oh, you shit on the left and not shit as much on the right. But I get it. Wow.
We're going to say that about you now. This
But I get it, actually. I get it.
They
is the
do.
thing.
That's fine.
The people the progressives will call you right wing or whatever.
And they do.
And they do, because you're criticizing the left. You're doing that.
Well, what can I say? What do I call her if she says, well, I think you're a little bit too tough on the left and don't criticize the right so much. But you know what? I get it. I do that as well. But like, what am I supposed to get out of this?
Out of a place of, let's get our shit together, right? I want our society to get its shit together, because the one unique experience that I
don't
have.
know what that means. For a society to get its shit together, quote unquote. Again, I have no clue what that's supposed to mean.
Most people don't have is, I've lived outside of this
That's
society.
right.
I was born outside of this society, and I can tell you, people in Russia
We live in a
and people in China are not having debates on TV about fucking pronouns.
That's right.
Yeah, because people in Russia don't have much debates about anything. Because Russia is not exactly a free country now, is it? Giving Russia as an example. Yeah, of course in Russia you don't have discussions about pronouns. Because the LGBT is designated as an extremist group. If you're gonna start a conversation about pronouns, in Russia you'll get arrested. What the fuck? Really? You're gonna give Russia as an example, as a beacon of how things should be? Really? When being LGBT is considered like an extreme, you can go to jail. Amazing. And what an amazing example. Russia.
Right? And the more time we spend on that, the less time
I want to listen to this again. Hiding you? What do you mean? Emily S.
we pronouns.
That's right.
Right? And the more time we spend having debates on the society, and I can tell you, people in Russia and people in China are not.
Oh, China! And China, also another beacon of freedom. China. Amazing. Russia and China. Yeah, like, the US should be more about, like, Russia on the LGBT issues. That would be.
Having debates on TV about fucking pronouns.
That's right.
Right? And the more time we
And
spend
she
on
just
that.
nods like an idiot. For real? Why do they call you right wing, Brianna Wu? Oh, why? How could that be? What could be the reason?
The less time we spend realizing that we live in a.
I mean, that is a thing that tends to happen with trans women that are on the right. Trans women that are on the right actually do tend to make arguments against themselves. Look at the classic Blair White.
Geopolitical battle of civilizations, and we are sliding back.
Battle of civilizations. Fuck me.
Backwards.
That's right. So, look, if I have a 5% disagree with you about pronouns,
Clash of Clans. The Clash of Clans.
like, let's be really clear here. You are on the side of democracy and liberalism. And I think something I appreciate about you is really talking about the threat of terrorism in very, very,
God damn it.
very clear terms. I think that sometimes in this country, when we think about Islam, it's the westernized, like, liberal professor version of it. And I think you're not really thinking about it through, like, what is happening in Syria or what ISIS is doing, or Iran and the Cold War with Saudi Arabia. So I think what I appreciate about you is I think you talk about this in really
Imagine appreciating these people.
clear moral terms. And I wish we could have a better conversation about that in this country. I think speaking about learning the wrong lessons, I think America learned a lot of the wrong lessons from 9/11 and George Bush, because we were attacked. That was something we needed to take seriously. But the lesson we took from that is because his leadership and decisions were so poor and got us into 2 wars that did not address terrorism. It created terrorism. We have 2 generations of Americans now that don't think the United States military can accomplish anything. That is false.
What? I'm sorry. Who thinks that the US military cannot accomplish anything? What a stupid statement to make. Who believes that? Who believes that the US military cannot accomplish anything? That is the stupidest statement I've heard.
We need to be an arsenal of democracy for the world. And I think I want to play my role in getting us there.
Well, that's great. But come back with me to what you think we might disagree about, because one of the things you mentioned was the trans issue.
Sure.
Trans issue. Let's talk about the trans issue. Oh, yes. Let's talk about it. The trans debate. Actually, a really long... Holy crap. The trans debate is like... Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho.
And
one of the longer segments, actually, is the trans debate. The Ukraine thing was so short. So sadly short.
Well, obviously, we all think this about our own position, but my view is, Francis and I have taken a pretty sensible position on it.
Oh, sensible position. Now let's hear what that means. You want to take bets? Should we take bets on what a sensible position on trans issues means? I'm really curious. Let's hear it. I'm not even gonna speculate. Let's hear it. Let's hear the sensible position on trans issues from the horse's mouth.
To have a broad range of perspectives on, we had a trans woman on the show very early, the first person with whom we raised this issue, who absolutely hates our guts now and whatever.
Give us the sensible position.
India Willoughby.
Oh, okay.
And we had...
She's a friend. I like her a lot.
And we had other people who had different perspectives. And we had... actually hates our guts now and whatever.
Who is it?
India Willoughby.
Oh, okay.
And we had...
She's a friend. I like her a lot.
And we had other people who had different perspectives, everyone from Buck Angel, who I know you know, to people who have...
Buck Angel. Oh, Buck Angel. That's... How many of you are familiar with Buck Angel? Actually, how many of the viewers that are here now are familiar with Buck Angel? Because I am familiar with Buck Angel, and I'm not impressed with bragging having Buck Angel as a guest. Buck Angel read my comment in live chat one time. What did he say? I said I might be non-binary. What did he say? Did he say, no, you're not?
Very critical of certain things, and I thought that their criticisms in some ways was excessive, but in other ways really important.
Sure.
And the place...
whatever.
I think we've both landed in is the place kind of to some extent we started in, which is adults should be able...
Buck Angel. The person that said, I know I'll never be a man.
Able to do what they want.
Great.
Children, however, are not capable of making informed decisions about the future because they're children.
Sure.
And should therefore be protected...
What?
...from informed decisions, do what they want.
Great.
Children, however, are not capable of making informed decisions about the future because they're children.
Sure.
Children make informed decisions about many things. That's stupid. There are actually many there are many states, I believe, in which children can make decisions about their healthcare in many situations.
And should therefore be protected from medicalization.
Sure.
And there's quite a lot of evidence that
What does that mean? Protected from medicalization? Another empty slogan. Without getting into it, I would like to hear what medicalization means.
a lot of children who go down the
Also very ironic saying protect from medicalization when talking to a trans medicalist.
transgender path are actually not transgender at all. They're either gay or they're autistic or both,
Yeah.
or bullied or whatever. And I don't think cutting bits off those children is the right position.
Oh, cutting bits. What are we talking? Twitch now?
To be clear, you can't get surgery until you're 18, as I understand it. Cut the bit.
Oh, there we go. Cut the bits.
You can get puberty blockers,
Non-puberty blockers.
right? That's
yeah.
pretty
But that's
mutilating.
not
What the fuck? What? Puberty blockers do not cut anything from your body. Oh, I'll see you, Jess. Thank you for being here. I'll see you again.
understand it. Cut the
You can
bits
get
off.
puberty blockers.
Non-puberty.
If you're autistic, then you have no capacity of understanding anything. Gender? What is gender? Like, people really don't know what even autism is. People really don't know. Like, people basically see that someone's on the spectrum and they just throw any sort of thing. Like, anything that fits.
Puberty. Get surgery until you're 18, as I understand it. Cut the
You can
bits
get
off.
puberty blockers,
Non-puberty blockers.
right? That's
yeah.
pretty
But
mutilating.
that's not cutting
That-
the
Puberty blockers are mutilating. What do puberty blockers mutilate?
Correct. Fine. Fine. Let's take that.
How is even being on the spectrum connected to gender? It's not connected at all.
Medicalizing
Sure.
confused children.
And it's not related to the sense of self and sense of gender. In this, you know.
Is something I'm against.
So, look, this is going to get me canceled by trans Twitter, but something that's changed in the last 10 years is we've really redefined who is trans, right?
Yeah.
It used to be people.
Oh, there we go. There we go into that conversation of who is the real trans, who is the fake trans, all those non-binaries, all those. Oh, of course, we're getting into it now. Oh, there we go. There we have it.
that medically transitioned. You went through the Benjamins, and then there were the WPATH standards, and some reasonable stuff. Go read it. Go to a therapist for 3 months, get on hormones, have real life experience out there, get surgery like a year later, right? Not a crazy like gauntlet.
Yeah, very easy peasy lemon squeezy, except it's not even how that worked. So
to go down. We've expanded all of these things in really extreme ways now. There are
like
people.
what? Give me an example. I hope I'm not gonna get some empty talk here, of all places, on this topic.
in the trans movement that, hand to God, really believe in self-ID. Like, you
Okay, can you explain the concept of self-ID? Do you even understand what self-ID is?
should just be able to say, I'm this gender, and that has legal consequences for what spaces you
Like
can
that.
enter. Yeah, this is crazy, right?
Why is it crazy? Like, you can't just call something crazy and be done. And just, it's crazy. I'm done. I'm done with the subject. Explain why it's crazy. Otherwise, I know she doesn't. She doesn't care.
I don't understand this non-binary stuff. I have friends that are non-binary. I think they're going through something real. They're in the W path, but they're going through something different than people who medically transition. So
What does that have to do with anything? Like that, this is so stupid.
to come back to your point about children, if
Of
you
course he's gonna just go past the non-binary thing really quickly without getting into it. Because what in practice, the whole they're going through a different thing means is that they should be excluded from the trans movement. That is what it means in practice. That is what she advocates for. That is what all of her buddies advocate for. But you know, she just sort of just went straight past it here.
We're adding all of that onto who is considered trans. Of course, there are going to be some of those children.
Yes, the only thing that the trans movement needs is to investigate who is a real trans person and who is a fake trans person.
Non-binary.
That is exactly what the movement needs. Investigating into the realness of one's claims of being trans.
Or just don't like the gender role, or confused, or gay, that transition is not going to serve them. So, yeah, I personally have the opinion that if you look at the science here...
Yeah, but and I know Brianna will cry and whine about it, but it is really sad that Poland, that is light years behind the US when it comes to trans issues, that all the big ones, the big trans organizations understand that you don't even need to transition in order to be trans.
It is not particularly conclusive one way or another. We need to double down on the studies we're doing.
What studies?
To really make a better pathway to serve those children. And I do want more of them filtered out.
So would you agree with me then that until we have the rock-solid evidences, we shouldn't be transitioning?
We do have rock-solid evidence. We have a lot of data. We have a lot of studies into these things. You just don't accept that.
Transitioning kids.
I think I would...
Transition in kids. Puberty blocker is not transition in kids, by the way.
I agree with you there, because I personally know so many people that are such good friends of mine that this saved their life. But what I think would help is progressives are not having an honest conversation with parents. And I am not sure
what sort of conversations
gender clinics are either. They are saying things like, your child is going to suicide if you don't do this really life-altering thing. I don't think that's a good message. I think we need to be talking to parents with more respect about all of this.
One of the things that I've actually have a...
Like what? Are we supposed to be quiet about the suicide aspect of it? Are doctors not supposed to warn parents about their children being suicidal? Is that what Brianna was saying?
Deep level of empathy for a lot of trans people. And trans people have spoken to both of us about it, and me individually, and all the rest of it is, you know, it's tough. It's tough dealing with gender dysphoria. It's really hard. It's really hard. You go through the processes, you take the meds, you go through what else, and then most people just want to get on with their lives.
That's right.
That's not true.
Want to live their lives. They want to do their jobs. They want to have their friends, their families. And that's it. And they've been politicized now.
That's right.
And, you know...
Yeah, sure. You explain what...
one person said to me, like, I just feel like...
What does that even mean, politicized?
I'm being asked to represent all the trans people. I am just a person.
That's right.
And I just want you to leave me alone.
That's right. It was this way 10 years ago. It was this way 20...
Yeah, and totally trans people were left alone 10 years ago. The discourse was so great 10 years ago when trans people just wanted to be left alone and were totally just left alone. Oh yeah, that was a thing. That was totally a thing. Trans people just being left alone.
20 years ago. It's
20 years ago, even more. 20 years ago, it was even better. It was even more good for trans people 20 years ago because they just wanted to be left alone.
It's really been, in my view, a real disaster.
The only reason why it's bad for trans people now is because trans people don't want to just be left alone. And it's the only reason why trans people don't have it as great as they had it 10 and 20 years ago when, you know, trans people were thriving in society.
Disaster for trans rights to redefine it from a nonpartisan medical issue to this leftist fringe identity issue where you're trying to destroy
Yeah, gender issue is an identity issue. What?
the idea of gender itself. Now, I want to be really clear. If someone's non-binary, I will do my best. I will call them by the pronouns that they want because I'm not a jackass.
I really love how Brianna was parroting transphobic arguments that are used against trans men, trans women. Oh, I'll respect your pronouns. I won't be an asshole. Like, this is a transphobic argument that transphobes use.
But
I don't really believe that you are what you say you are, but I'll respect you because I'm not an asshole.
doesn't mean I agree with this idea of destroying gender in the
There you go. This is an argument that's been used for years and years and years. I'll humor you. I'll call you she. I'll call you he. But it doesn't mean that I'm for the idea that men can just become women and vice versa. It's just oh wait, I forgot. If I bring this up, people just say that I use the Hitler drank water argument. If I bring this up, people will just say that I'm trying to say that X drank water, Hitler drank water, therefore X is like Hitler.
public comments. That's not something I support. So, I think the truth is we need to be able to have a discussion. And I think a lot of trans people that actually transition have been ironically censored from their own civil rights movement.
And the discussion is
yes, I'm transitioning and I feel so censored. Please uncensor me. I feel so censored. I feel so censored from my own movement.
important part. And this is where the progressive taboos, and they really are progressive taboos.
Yeah.
Progressive taboos. What are the taboos? Like, I so hate these vague, meaningless statements. I hate them so much.
They have to be broken apart.
I agree.
We have to be able to talk about the data, the evidence, without...
You don't want to talk about the data and evidence. You pretend they don't exist. How are we supposed to talk about the evidence and the data if you pretend those things don't even exist?
You're denying
Yes, Brianna was
trans people's existence and all of this other nonsense
I agree.
that got made up.
Did you read Emily Blaslan's, I don't know how you say it. It was a really great piece in the New York Times called The Battle for Gender Clinics or something. It was about children transitioning. I was so upset about this because it was such a deeply reported, amazing piece that was overwhelmingly pro-trans and was talking about the history of children transitioning and what the reality was in these gender clinics and the pros of it and the cons of it. And what did trans Twitter do from open discussion?
Trans Twitter.
And from a reporter that was very, very sympathetic to that cause.
I don't trust Brianna on this at all. And somebody give me more info on this article because I don't trust Brianna at all on this.
They canceled her. They went after her in very personal ways. She had to step away from Twitter. I
have zero trust in what Brianna says about this. So if anybody has any information on that person or the article, hit me up.
Absolute hell for her. If trans people cannot even let the New York Times write an article that is pro-trans healthcare and act like adults, I don't know how they're going to win over normal people.
Brianna, do they want to win over normal people?
What does that even mean? Winning over normal people? Are trans people abnormal people?
Yes. I think some do. I don't think a lot of the new ones do.
No.
No.
And to me, that's the real problem.
I
They're
agree.
more interested in being right
I
and
agree.
winning people over.
I agree.
And
There's a lot of that going around, to be fair.
Yeah. And when you're in
He's right, I could. But the commands don't work, so I cannot. Oh yeah, it works. Never. No, it does not work.
that position, I mean, that's a pretty terrible position to be in for everybody.
I agree. It's so discouraging. I mean, it's
Yeah,
for
you
me.
do discourage
I'm
me a lot.
46. I remember when trans was Jerry Springer in this country. I don't know if you know who that was. And to
Yep.
think
Yep.
about that as
Jerry.
to
Yeah.
think about that era as just a healthier discussion. It's terrifying. To
It's
think
amazing how
about.
we live in a world where Jerry Springer was a healthier discussion.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Just bring about 10 crazies onto the stage and make them fight. That was helpful.
Yeah, and then
This
it got
is-
broken up.
This is what I was thinking about. Like in the Jerry Springer era, like a trans woman being married to a man was salacious. And today it's boring because half of trans Twitter is in their polycule with 5 non-binary.
It shouldn't be. What the fuck? Yeah, isn't this good? That a trans woman being married to a man is not considered anything special anymore? How is that bad? Are you an idiot? Is that supposed to be considered special forever? What is this person even saying? What is this person nostalgic for? Like, genuinely, what is this person even nostalgic for? What is she saying?
People. Like it's insane.
So you mentioned
It's insane that a trans woman being married to a man is not treated as something special anymore? That's insane?
election that's obviously looming in the future. You seem to think it's going to be close. You don't know. You're not making a call either way.
Well, let me tell you why. So elections do not come down to vibes. They come down to
They partially kind of do come down to vibes, actually. A lot of people do actually unironically vote on vibes. I feel like the immigration is bad and will hurt me. I feel like this issue will affect me. Yeah, actually a lot of people do vote on vibes.
get out the vote. So what I mean by get out the vote is you build a relational database of contacts that you have from canvassing or relational organizing, which is you literally pay people to go contact 100 of their friends on Facebook and make sure they'll get out and vote. And the Democrats' data strategy this time around has actually been pretty good. So when I'm looking at the infrastructure we are building for the ground game in these swing states, I actually feel pretty positive about it. So yeah, our messaging, I think I would give a D- to. Joe Biden's ability to go out and make a coherent vision for the country, I would give an F to. But these like bread and butter tools to win an election, I actually think we're doing much better than Trump is.
And yet, Joe Biden is in trouble.
Brianna, I've got to ask this question.
Sure.
He's too old, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Trump isn't. They're like 4 years apart. I hate this argument so much. When people say that Joe Biden is too old, but somehow Trump isn't. They're not that far apart.
This is why I didn't vote for him in the primary, like in 2020.
What is going on when we have Trump or Biden?
There you go. At least he added Trump here.
What is going on with the system? You've got this amazing
Do you
country.
think I can defend this? One of my closest friends, Cenk Uygur, ran for president.
Cenk Uygur. Of course. Cenk Uygur, the dark horse of the presidential election.
Because he saw this and believes Biden can't win. So I can't defend it. I mean, I've been very open. I wish he had dropped out and let someone else be the standard bearer. He didn't. And it's a really big risk, and now it's too late to do anything.
Who would you rather have run
So y'all probably don't like her, but Elizabeth Warren, she's my senator in Massachusetts. I think she is amazing. She's the best in-person politician I've ever seen.
We're both too old, but Trump can out charisma this That is true. His supporters don't really care what he's. That is true.
Works a room, really good policy. I would love to see her as president.
I don't know why you say we probably wouldn't like her. We're big fans of Native American rights.
Well, I say that because
I had to say that. Come on.
fair enough. She is, she's gotten into some gender controversies, I think I would say.
Yeah, no, I think that actually, if you listen to some of the stuff that she says about economics,
You just throw the term economics around, but they've not said anything about economics. Have you noticed that? They've not discussed economics at all, even though they throw the term around.
some of it I don't agree with. Some of it I agree with.
Yeah.
And she's definitely not one of these crazy. She's I'm not sure she's the inspirational candidate that we'd all hope for. But no.
Okay, how about Ro Khanna? Do you know Ro Khanna?
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Ro Khanna is a really good guy.
Yeah.
Really smart, really policy focused, very focused.
I love how she also throws around the word policy without ever naming any policy. That is my favorite thing in the world that she does. Genuinely. My most favorite thing in the world is her throwing around the word policy without talking about policy. Very convenient. It's about sounding smart, not being smart. Well, that is true.
I think he would be an excellent president. We've got talent in the party. I think the problem is, and the Republicans have this issue too, there's a seniority system. So it's like, whose turn is it?
Right.
Whose favors can I call in?
So then you eventually end up with a bunch of old people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also about electability, at least perceived electability.
Well, on that happy note,
Like about being afraid that if someone new went against Trump, people would just not vote for the new person because they would be,
why don't we wrap up? We'll go to locals for questions from our audience. But before we do, Brianna, the last question, as you know, we always ask is, what's the one thing we're not talking about that we should be?
Before Brianna answers a final question at the end of the interview, make sure to head over to our locals.
No.
Make sure to head over to our locals.
No.
What argument does the right make that you agree with, but the left will
Oh my God. Okay, let's go.
never accept?
What does Brianna think of wokeness in games such as D&D?
It's so
Wokeness in D&D. That's a whole thing that we've even discussed on the stream.
clear after October 7th. This isn't even about equality. It's about some people want power. What's the one thing we're talking about that we're not talking about? I think that something really scary is going on with young men. I saw this during Gamergate, and one of the mistakes...
Gamergate. Oh, Jesus.
I feel I made during Gamergate was treating these young men as if they were monsters. And I think the truth is we have two generations of young men that are looking for a path.
Poor young men. Poor young men.
And they're lost and they're lonely. And Andrew Tate is talking to them in terms they understand, and the Democrats are not. So I think that, just talking at the direct, we didn't get a chance to do this today. I think if the Democratic Party cannot figure out a way to, yes, talk about women's rights, talk about LGBT rights, but stop telling men that they don't matter, I don't think we're going to win elections.
Who tells men they don't?
I think we need to get extremely serious about this.
Yeah, if you want to understand the slide generationally, my generation's male role model in the public, on the internet, is Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck with Jordan Peterson as a role model of masculinity. Good luck.
Who I think is a great guy. I've just been
Oh my God. What a role model. Role model for men.
Boring with him, so I would say that. But he is a great guy, a really, truly great man.
A truly great man.
And Gen Z's male role model is Andrew Tate,
Jordan Peterson.
That's right.
about whom I would definitely not say
It's okay. I believe you. Those people are just really stupid, so of course, predictable.
the same thing.
That's right. I always find Jordan Peterson really
Oh my god.
interesting. You know, I've talked about this a million
I do not find Jordan Peterson interesting in the slightest, but maybe, hey, maybe I just don't see it.
times, but yeah, I have been sober for 20 years. So a lot of his struggles with, you know, finding yourself addicted and trying to find a path back, I really identify with that. I've always wanted to talk to him about it.
Yeah. He's great, and what he's doing
He is great. Oh, he's so great.
now is he's not really talking about the culture war or politics or anything, and I'm glad he's not. I think it's a great thing that he's doing, because he's talking to people about how to live a good life.
Yeah.
And he's telling them very powerful stories about some of the ways to do that. You know, you don't have to believe in God or not or whatever. It's just a very powerful way of looking at the world and being
Yeah, very powerful man Jordan Peterson is.
constructive, productive, creative, you know, passionate, driven, and living a good life and contributing to others.
Yeah.
That's a good role model.
Jordan Peterson does none of these things. Who does he contribute to?
But I think that the fact that the next generation is leaning in a different direction tells you quite a lot about what young men are dealing with, what they're being told about who they are, what their role is in the world, and the way the economy is changing and all of that. So I think it's a great
It's a
thing to-
really hard time to be a young man. I was, you know, my husband, I've talked to him about this so much, like what it was like for him growing up and learning to be a man. Yeah, there were culture, there were institutions there a generation ago. I don't think those exist today. I think we're throwing our young men online. I think they're not learning to interact with people in the real world. I think they're lonely. I think they're horny. And I think they're
They're lonely and horny.
lost. You know, we've talked a lot about how democracy survives from here. How can any country survive without young men and a path? Like, it can't. So, you know, I really wish the Democrats would make it a project to find our public figures that can talk to those young men in honest ways and try to bring them in and come up with some public policy to make their lives better.
All right. Well, the three Democrats who were listening, thank you for being around. Take that to heart. And head on over to Locals, where we ask Brianna your questions. Are you worried you'll never find a way to reach those on your own side that see you as a traitor? Or will you be comfortable remaining a dissident voice?
My goal is to destroy those people.
Oh my god. Of course. The best was left for last. My goal is to destroy these people. There you have it. There you have it. My goal is to destroy these people. Excellent. So there you have it. Have you enjoyed this little reaction? Have you enjoyed me breaking this down? Do you think I did a good job? Do you think that this segment went well? If you do, if you believe that I did a good job at sort of this thing, even though Dave said nothing, so there was not much specifics for me to add, but if you've enjoyed this little segment, then why not get rid of your white name to support my soon-to-be trip to Ukraine?